Okay, have you ever met someone and instantly known, yeah, that's a middle child? Something about their energy just seems to say, I'm the one who gets blamed for every fight with my younger sibling, even though I didn't break that vase in 6th grade. Or, yeah, I live under the shadow of my older sibling. Needless to say, being a middle child doesn't have the best connotation. Middleborns don't have the rights of the oldest or the privileges of the youngest, says Dr. Catherine Salmon. See, even doctors understand the struggles that the middle child faces. With such negative perceptions of what it means to be a middle child, middle children can often feel neglected. In fact, the American National Family Life Survey in 2021 found that 83% of middle children reported that they were not the favorite sibling in their family. What if being a middle child wasn't actually such a bad thing, though? What if it could be reframed in a positive light? As a middle child and one who refuses to be defined by stereotypes, I have looked for ways that being a middle child is not second best. I identified 3 key areas in which middle children stand apart from the crowd: perspective taking, pathfinding, and peacemaking. Perspective taking. Great storytellers often have good perspective and self-awareness. Where do these attributes come from? In many cases, a strong sense of confidence comes from enduring tough circumstances and being adaptable as a result. Such people are able to relate to others and make others feel at ease. They can switch between different groups of people without having to compromise things about themselves. Abraham Lincoln was a great example of this. After the first Battle of Bull Run, the fierce fighting and many casualties caused everyone to realize that the war was going to be much longer and bloodier than either had anticipated. Just 8 days after the battle, Treasury Secretary Hugh McCulloch visited the demoralized White House. He later recounted that at that time, President Lincoln had told a humorous story with skill, quote, so cultivated that he could make a story illustrate a sentiment and give point to an argument, end quote. Only someone with great perspective could feel this English, yet choose to take a positive perspective. Abraham Lincoln was a middle child. While I haven't been president of the United States, I have also learned to take a greater perspective in challenging circumstances as a result of growing up in a 2-family house with my immediate family and my cousins until I was 8. Combined with my 2 siblings, that made 7 kids in my house. I was in the middle, the 4th of 7. With the older kids, we'd often race our bikes. They would consistently win because they were all more than 2 years older than me, which meant more bike practice and longer legs. With younger kids, I had to mediate conflicts, help entertain them, and act as the responsible oldest, as a 7-year-old. Wearing many hats as the 4th of 7 cousins helped to enlarge my perspective. The second is pathfinding. Since they are sometimes ignored or left out, they have to come with resourceful ways of getting attention. Sometimes this means acting out in an attempt to get their parents' attention. Other times, it's embracing the peace and quiet that comes from being more overlooked and forging your new path. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, and Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, are examples of this. They both saw an opportunity and took necessary steps to bring about their visions. Whether that's for better or worse is another talk. In any case, they were trailblazers in their fields. Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates are middle children. Peacemaking. Middle children have to be peacemakers. How else would the conflict over who sits in what row during a road trip be resolved? Middle children also merge the gap between older and younger kids and are the catalyst for helping everyone get along. In my family, I often come up with compromises, like suggesting we go to Chipotle, a place everyone likes, when one sibling wants Panda Express and the other wants pizza. Many of the examples I've shared are silly and are reminiscent of my early childhood, but my role as a middle child still affects me now. I believe it is in part due to my identity as a middle child that I enjoy being a leader. My role as a mediator in my family has helped me build strong interpersonal skills that allow me to organize large groups of people, communicate well, and work collaboratively. Nonviolent civil rights leader Martin Luther King was a prime example of what peacemaking looks like. He endured mistreatment in his life. He experienced violence towards himself, his family, and loved ones. Nonetheless, in his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, King said, quote, "Nonviolence is the answer to the crucial political and moral questions of our time. The need for mankind to overcome oppression and violence without resorting to oppression and violence. Mankind must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of this method is love." King implored us all to focus on not just eliminating contention, but on the positive affirmation of peace. MLK was a middle child. If you're also a middle child, I hope you see yourself in the stories I'm illustrating. And if you're not a middle child, I sincerely hope you also find these stories relatable and these attributes admirable. This message is not only for middle children, but for everyone. Do you have to be a middle child to do great things like these figures? Of course not. We can certainly learn and take inspiration from middle children, though. While she wasn't a middle child, Margaret Thatcher understood being in the middle because of her many years in politics. Margaret Thatcher was the first female Prime Minister of the UK, a role she held for 11 years at the height of the Cold War. She once told a biographer, "Standing in the middle of the road is a very dangerous. You can get knocked down by traffic from both sides." In her years at public service, she received criticism from both sides of the political spectrum for her policies, but she tried to understand the views of all, which helped her develop a strong perspective. Her perspective helped her to find new paths and forge peace in her time. Thatcher was a woman of strong convictions. Her resolve against the spread of communism led a Soviet journalist to nickname her the Iron Lady. Whether you're a middle child like me, or in the middle of tumultuous political eras, social movements, or in the middle of any social group, you can look to the examples of middle children and thoughtfully develop the attributes of perspective-taking, path-making, and peacemaking. Thank you.